Welcome everybody to webinar number 5, our final part of the series. And in this webinar, we're going to be discussing tactics, formations, game models, methodologies. So this is going to be how I would teach a formation, and you can duplicate this with any formation that you're going to teach. And as always, I'd like to thank PUMA and BSN Sports for making this available. So before we jump right into formations, let's talk about game model, style of play, and how a methodology fits into all of this. So first, a game model. That's simply how are you going to execute a game plan against the team that you're playing next. A game model doesn't have to be for a year, for a month. It's how do we create this game model to give us the best chance of winning against our next opponent. Now, underneath the game model, you're going to have fundamentals that you probably stick to. And we'll call that kind of your style of play. That's kind of what you believe in, how you actually believe the game should be played. However, you can adjust for opponents, and that's where you make the adjustment is in the game model. And obviously a methodology is how you teach the game of soccer through the age groups in a progressive way. Your methodology is going to reinforce how you believe how you want to play the game. That's kind of your style of play, and then the tweaks could be made on a weekly basis in the game model. Now when we talk about game model construction, we have to talk about all 4 phases of the game. So if you're going to prep your team for the next match, you can't just focus on one phase, just say attacking organization or attacking transition. You have to say, this is the way we're going to play, this is what it should look like in all 4 phases of the game, in all 3 parts of the field. It's very, very important that you go over that. I'm going to spend some time with you in this webinar going over all 4 phases of the game in all 3 parts of the field. And again, this will be with any formation that you play. You're going to teach all 4 phases of the game in all 3 parts of the field. But before we get into teaching formations in all 4 phases of the game in all 3 parts of the field, I do have kind of a overlapping theme here. This is Pep Guardiola's positional grid, which I probably showed you before. But if you notice, low percentage areas in the corner, the fast areas, the one-touch area on top of the box, the half spaces in between the outside lanes and that box on top of the box. Obviously, half spaces are really valuable spaces where you could put passes, penetrating passes through, and you can also shoot on goal to the far post, all these types of things, right? So this Guardiola's positional grid provides a little bit of a framework when it comes to if we're a possession team, right, and we really want to boss the game and have the ball the whole time. This provides players with a little bit of a fundamental, a little bit of a roadmap. I'm not saying they can't bend it, and that can become a very flexible roadmap depending on each player's affordances. And if you know a player has special affordances and they're in that one-touch fast area on top of the box, but they're an incredible dribbler, okay, if they can dribble and get by and score, great. But not every player can do that, right? So that this tends to bring a little bit of structure to whatever formation you're playing. And I subscribe to this. Like my team is going to follow this, and they're going to be able to tell me, like, this is Pep Guardiola's positional grid. These are the ideas in each part of the field, but obviously with flexibility. And then one more thing to look at is, for me, my personal style of play is going to focus on possession, positional, and pressing. So those 3 things are important to me because if we possess the ball, it allows us to build our attacking shape. It forces the other team back into a low block. It allows us to get in position, right? Possession allows players to get in position where we can connect 15, 20 passes, get from our defensive third to their attacking third. And now positionally, if we lose the ball in their attacking third, we're ready for the third P, right? Which is pressing, because we've got in position, because we were good enough to keep possession of the ball, move it down the field, get in position, and be able to counter press. Those are three really important principles for us, and everything is going to revolve around keeping that ball. So in this presentation, I'm going to use a 3-2-2-3 formation to kind of walk you through how I would teach a formation and all the important aspects to it. So you could see here we have three in the back, right, left, center back, center back. We have a box midfield, right, with two defensive center mids who sit in closer and two attacking center mids that play out wider in between the striker and the winger, and obviously we have our front three. So that is a 3-2-2-3 formation. However, again, the only difference in formations is really 10 yards in between each and every player's positioning on the field, and a formation is only really a formation before the ball is kicked. Because after the ball is kicked, these formations transfer, they change in the attacking third compared to the defensive third. It really, if the other opponent leaves one striker up top, or do they leave three up top, it changes our positioning as well. This is why I say we have to train all thirds of the field, both on attack and while defending, because players need to know generally what does that look like. And if we're in full attack in the attacking third, we have to be smart enough to say to ourselves, are we in position, are we defensively balanced, and this goes with any formation, against the counterattack. So those are things that we're thinking, and let's move on from there. So here is the first example of what does the team shape look like in a 3-2-2-3 in the attacking third. And what you could see is the two attacking center mids are pushed forward in between players, in between lines, so we really have a front five. Now, I am going to allow my left center back and right center back complete freedom to get up the field and attack wide areas. What does that mean, though? Do I want to leave our center back 1v1 against their striker? If I don't want to do that, I can drop a defensive center mid. So now we really do have a standard back four. Now, if their striker is say doesn't have any pace and he's just a target guy, and our center back is physically gifted, he's a great defender, there's no way that that striker is ever going to break away. Well, at that point, maybe I do say we're going to mark 1v1, and I'll send my defensive center mid up to add another player in attack. Or maybe it's worth the risk because there's 15 minutes left in the game and we're down a goal. So these are things that we have to always look at, and we have to practice those situations as well. So here's another look at what that 3-2-2-3 will look like. I want you to notice that the wingers are nice and wide, and we're going to call these yellow lines that make two boxes. We want to kind of give that analogy to our attacking center mids and say, listen, you guys want to fill the two boxes in between the outside back, center back, and the left winger and the center mid, right? So those players there are really occupying half spaces from Pep Guardiola's positional grid. It would be really good for these guys to be able to penetrate off the dribble and also make forward runs into the box. They are also available if the winger cuts in to be the guy they're going to play the 1-2 off of, and those guys are really counted on to get into the box if the winger is going to drive end line as well and look to play the ball to feet on the ground. So that's just another look at what does it look like in the attacking third. Now, that's the attacking third. Now we're going to look at what does it look like to play the ball out of the box from our goalkeeper? So if you noticed, again, I dropped a defensive center mid and I put the ball in the middle of the goal. So the pressing team doesn't have an indication of which way we're going to play. Now you could drop the center backs lower to give them more time to receive the ball. I have them playing right there on the side of the box. The reason I dropped the defensive center mid is because our left center back is naturally left-footed. So I put them right there, and our defensive center mid is usually very comfortable playing balls into the middle of the field. So if you see this team that they're playing against is pressing two up top, we have to find the numerical advantage. And in this, diagram, the numerical advantage is actually the defensive center mid who's wide open. If the red team was going to push one of their defensive center mids onto him, that will leave one of our attacking center mids open. And then we would look to hit second line balls. This is all about figuring out numerical superiorities and where that is. Where is there free players, or where is there an overload that can be created for us working the ball out of the back? I do subscribe to some positional play ideas, so is it okay once in a while to get in that ball if there's a severe speed mismatch? Can we get the ball in and behind? Sure, if there's a big superiority in speed. But normally, because the way we play, we will try to work the ball out of the back, and that could mean short passes, that could mean second line passes, and once in a while that could even mean a longer pass, 50, 60 yards once in a while. Now we'll take a look at what we would call a high press. So this is still a 3-2-2-3 formation, but we need to say, how are we going to run on the defensive organization side a high press? So what we did is we took an attacking center mid, pushed him up to be with the striker. So now we have 2 against 2 against both center backs. If the ball is played to a center back, the striker would say, force that a certain direction. So if he plays to the keeper, striker will continue on with his run to pressure the keeper. You can see here that there's a player in red, a defensive center mid that's open. So we actually pushed our attacking center mid onto him. And at that point, we will have our defensive center mid will drop into the back line and have the option to try to close down their free attacking mid on their team, maybe kind of cut the distance so when the ball's in flight, can go and clamp down on that defender if they elect to play a second line ball. But this is a standard formation for us where we're going to high press. So it's important, again, to teach all thirds of the field. So if we're teaching defensive organization, we are teaching this is a high press in the opponent's defensive third, our attacking third of the field. Now we're going to take a look at what is called a half press. Now a half press is simply we're going to drop off from when it's their goal kick and we're going to let them have the ball. One of our attacking center mids is going to step up and along with the striker. So both center backs in possession do have man-for-man marking, whether we press hard at that point. I don't want the center backs to be able to just launch balls. So if it looks like they're going to hit a long ball, our striker or attacking center mid will press hard and try to stop that ball from happening. But the reality is our counter-pressing zones, that means this is the area where the counterattack starts, normally is out wide. So if the left center back has the ball, seen here, and they're going to play out wide, we're going to invite that ball. And if you notice, our winger isn't there yet. They're going to give space to this left back because we want to invite that ball because that is our pressing zone. At that point, the attacking center mid pushes this center back to play that ball, cuts off the angle for that center back to play the other way. The only way you could play is back or out wide, plays the ball out wide while the ball is in flight. Our winger comes 100 miles an hour to press there as our other attacking center mid cuts off that easy pass that diagonally into the middle of the field. And then we have two defensive center mids, one dropped in between the lines and the other marking just a 45-degree angle up there. If you watch, our back line has shifted over completely to the side that the ball is being played. When you play with a back three, that line has to shift. Now, if you notice, the weak side or far side winger is going to take a position joining, you almost want to say joining that back three that shift over, but he's not really going to join it. He's going to see what the outcome is, because if our winger is pressing that left back hard and that left back is not turned and you know they're going to be engaged in a tackle, our far side winger needs to read that and not drop too far back, because he has to be ready for the counterattack. If there's no pressure on that left back and he knows that there's time for that left back to take a touch, put their head up and serve a ball, at that point, our winger on the far side has to join the back four. So it's really about having some intelligence and reading the play. And that is what is called a half press, with pressure areas on the outside, with the idea of we are going to press and counterattack. Now, as we go into our season, I really want to possess the ball and I want to dominate the game, possession, positional pressing, but there are times when our team is going to be on the back foot. What if we play a team that's better than us or as good as us, and there's going to be moments in the game where we are going to be pinned back? And if we get pinned back, it forms this is a low block. So we went over a high press, a half press, right? So that's 2/3 of the field covered already. But now we have to go over our own defensive third, which is a low block. And in this low block, the wingers drop back to create a line of 5. So we actually have a 5-3, two defensive center mids and an attacking center mid, 1-1. And for that 1-1, it really depends what you want to do. If you want to split the field with the 1-1, the attacking center mid can come out and take the right side of the field if the ball is switched, and the striker could stay high. If the ball is switched to the other side of the field, striker could shift over as the attacking center mid stays high. It really depends what you want to do. If your striker is extremely fast with superior breakaway speed, maybe you don't want that at all. Maybe you just want that striker to stay high and up top and look for any type of breakaway transition that you can. But this is a typical low block. Players should practice this. They should feel comfortable in this. And that way, if you're ever in a low block, they feel there's no panic. They're good. They've been here before. They have the mentality to defend. And out of a low block, obviously, if we have a superiority, a speed mismatch up top, we can go straight away and try to counter with our striker. If not, we build, right? We keep the ball, possession. Possession allows us to open up into attacking organization, positional, and eventually we go through the thirds. We always have the +1 in the back with the goalkeeper to give us a numerical advantage. And then we eventually get to the attacking third. If we're going to build through the thirds, it'll probably take us 15 passes to get to the attacking third. And at that point, we are in position to counterpress if we lose the ball in the attacking third. So now I'm going to give you some examples from my own team. And like I told you, I believe in some aspects of positional play. So zone 1 is we're working the ball out from the back here in zone 1. And obviously we were lacking a defensive center mid who's showing in right there. But in zone 1, we possess the ball. It allows us to take the proper attacking organization shape. And we always use the keeper as the +1. Another thing that we use getting out of zone 1 is one-touch passing, which you see here. One-touching passing is very difficult to deal with when you're working the ball out of the back. And you could see as we connect passes together, it allows us to get to the attacking third. And zone 2 and 3 is what you're seeing here. You're seeing us build out of midfield, zone 2, and how we progress the ball into zone 3. And I have Pep Guardiola's positional grid there just as whatever the formation doesn't quite matter as much as the ideas behind the way we play, right? And that's a really big point for us, the ideas of how we play. And there are some times in this, though, I think it's coming up that you'll see we can skip from zone one all the way to zone three. I believe here comes a long ball from zone one to zone three. And it ends up working out. We ended up winning the second ball and we got the ball up the field. But when the other team here is in a bit of a low block, we really do have to keep this ball. And you could see that the space is out wide. You could see that's where the space is. And we get the ball out wide, find the space, back into the box, and try to finish. It's a little bit more. And as you watch the team play, you kind of notice, you could see our style of play, whether this is a 3-2-2-3, a 3-5-2, a 4-3-3. Really, at the end of the day, soccer is about understanding how to exploit time and space. And when players are good enough to do that, then everything works out really well. And there's players with, again, that player was a really, really gifted dribbler. And that's where we always talk about, giving players freedom. Here's zone one from the goalkeeper into zone two. He hits a direct ball because that's where the free midfielder was. And that's what we had talked about in the clips that I showed you earlier. Here's the fast touch on top of the box. Those are all one-touch passing on the box on top of the box, leading to a goal. Here's where we kind of talk about affordances, right? This guy on the ball has really good dribbling ability and good acceleration. So normally you might not want a player to be dribbling there, but because of his affordances, we think that that was okay. See again, some nice one-touch passing and in and behind. So all these things start to come together. Now, under the theory of ecological dynamics, a lot of our training session stuff is not done in isolation. Like, this is zone one, this is zone two, this is zone three. We can do some isolation in it, but eventually I want those trainings to be more in the whole, like we spoke about in all the other webinars, where all four phases of the game are put together with transition, attacking organization, defensive organization, because that really is the whole, and that is the real game. Like tactical periodization that breaks everything down into pieces, and they train in pieces, I would tend to start to stray away from just pieces. Now that brings us to set pieces, right? So no matter what formation you're playing, you still have to go over what you could argue is the fifth phase of play, because so many goals come from set pieces. It's almost hard to ignore the fact that set pieces could be considered the fifth phase of play. So we have to go over things like defensive corner kick that you see right here. So with the defensive corner kick, we basically have 5 players against 4 of their players, and man marking, we have an extra player. Then we have a zonal player in front of goal, and then I have 1 on the post, and then we have 1 just tucked inside this 6-yard box. I wouldn't have that player too far out because the ball will go straight over their head. And if we have 1 player on top of the box here, if it is a short corner, we are always sending 2 against 2. We keep our striker up, but we could push our striker back if it was late in the game and we wanted to defend the lead or something. We want an extra player back. But I do a mixed system between zone and man-for-man marking. It's just really, really simple. It doesn't matter what formation we're playing, right? But when I practice this in the whole. So we'll actually practice this as a competition where we set up 2 goals and the field might be, whatever that is, 45 yards in length. Team takes the corner, the other team sets up in defensive corner, and we play it out and we try to score and then we set it up again. Because so many times when you separate these things, A, it becomes boring for the players, and B, again, it's split into pieces again. I like to see the transition, because how many times on corners are corners, they're well organized defensively, ball gets served, we get a half clearance, and then the ball is served back in again. And if usually that's where the breakdown in organization happens. And you also want to practice the counter off the corner as well. Now, this is just a real simple idea of, this is our attacking corner kick, right? So we got 4 in the box. We got one towards the far side of the box, kind of looking for any second ball that comes out. We always have 2 against 1 on their striker, but we have 3 options. We have a short option. If they send 2, we always bring in our outside left back, who comes late and fast, as another option and can serve the ball in on an in-swinger to the far post, etc. Nowadays, you see a lot of plays to the near post where maybe we only send we don't send anybody short, and we have a bunch of guys, and we create like a screen that you would see in basketball, right? And the near post corner off a screen for somebody like Van Dyke or your center back or whoever it is, very, very difficult to stop, and that's a fast area. And the percentages now of corners that are scored are really near post corners, with a player screening their man marker as that player gets a little bit of free space to head that ball in. But again, that's just a trend. That's just statistics in the game. Everything always is changing. Now, this is another setup that we use, which now you see there's no short corner. Maybe that left back kind of came in if they needed him, but now we're going far post. The same thing. Maybe we'll screen somebody's marker far post, and that player can either head it in or head it back across goal for someone to finish. So just another variation. I try to keep it nice and simple for the regular season. If we want to change things up, which we usually do for the playoffs, then we'll change it up for the playoffs. That way no one can really see what we've done all season, because it won't apply to the playoffs. And here's something that I just kind of go over with the players in preseason, general ideas about tactics, right? And I want them to understand that we are here to dominate possession of the ball. And this year, for me, there's no plan B here. And obviously, if you get a red card or if you get players injured, and you're going to have to change. It really depends. But for me right now, I want to adopt the mentality that there is no plan B. And we have to do everything we can to keep possession of the ball, because possession of the ball leads us to good positions, counter pressing opportunities, and goals. So I want to see each player really, really understand that the ball is the treasure, and we are passionate about keeping the ball, because if we keep the ball, our chances of winning the game and scoring are much, much higher. Even when we're defending, we want to be the aggressors in the game. We want to have that mentality of, you are hunting the ball down to win it. If you do lose it, which we never want to lose the ball, we have to then turn this mentality into, we're all going to hunt this ball down together to win it back. I also want the kids to know their attitude and their energy is massively, massively important. They need to understand that they're part of a team. It's not about them. They can control their attitude. They can control their effort. Those are the things they can control. They have to understand that whatever they do, whatever they say has meaning. And if they're not comfortable saying that in front of the whole team, because eventually the whole team will find out anyways, they shouldn't be saying it. And I know that players have their opinions about the way we play and who should be starting. These things are not conversations that really, I encourage them to have conversations about football and analyzing football and all these things. But at the end of the day, the coaches make the decisions. We're happy to have discussions with them in private, off the field, 1v1, but those discussions happen maybe once every couple weeks, maybe once a month, and so that everyone gets to be heard and the opinions get to be heard, but it's in the proper context. Because when you're trying to put in a style of play and you're trying to put in, really mold a team in a short time frame of 3 months, everybody's got to be on board. And what we decide on, you're either on the bus or you're off the bus. And we don't have time to debate this. That's why there is no plan B. And, obviously in the back of my mind, there could be a plan B if things change, but there is no plan B. We train every time we go to training. We train to keep the ball. Every exercise is about keeping the ball. We try to use as many whole exercises as possible. We want the kids to understand their roles and responsibilities, both in attack and on defense, in every single area of the field. If I would say we have to make any formation changes, yes, we can practice 2 other formations just so kids are comfortable. But the reality is, good players, and Belsa always said this, can figure out and be trained a new formation in 2 hours. And I really believe that as well. If we're going to train a 4-4-2, a 4-1-4-1, whatever it is, that takes me 1 training session. This project is much bigger. If you're going to expand the game, there's a lot of risk involved, but there's also a lot of reward involved. But you have to be brave. You have to cultivate that mentality, and that starts from the coaching staff preaching that all the way down to the players. So I hope you enjoyed the tactical session about things you should include while you're teaching any formation that you want.